Okay, guys, so what we did last time is we learned how to set up a project, okay? And the first part of setting up a project usually happens on your computer. So what we did is we created a folder that we call Data Science with R. And this is not really the project itself, but we said that, okay, this is going to be a folder in which everything that we're going to do in this course, okay, is going to reside. Everything is going to be there. Hey, we have a friend, Leonard2404. Hi, I hope you're doing good. All right, so inside this folder, we then created another folder called flights underscore analysis. And we said that this was going to be the home of our project. Okay. By the way, we're going to work on other projects and I am going to assign you some projects as well. So for every other project that I'm going to assign you, you can just create other folders here. For example, if there's another project that we call coronavirus, there's a lot of data for coronavirus actually. So we're going to apply our knowledge on some coronavirus data sets. Virus project or something. Okay, so this is going to be a folder for another project, and you can create as many folders as you want here for all the projects. Okay, so I'm going to remove this here for now. Okay, so after doing this, we kind of created a structure inside our root folder. We created a folder for data. Inside data, we created prepped and raw. Okay, and the data that I sent you was all placed within the raw data, the raw directory basically. Okay, then we had another folder for reporting and then another folder for visualization. We're going to get to that at some point. Then we went back to our studio. Okay, we went back to our studio and we basically took some steps in order to tell our studio that this folder that we created called flights analysis is where our project is going to live. And in order to do that, we clicked on this button here, create a project. Okay, you can do that, or you can just go to File, New Project. Okay, that's another option. And when you do that, this window here appears. And because we have already created the folders where our project is going to be, we can go to existing directory. Okay, if we hadn't created a new folder, we could have gone to new directory. Okay, but we have already created a directory ourselves on our computer. So new existing directory, then browse. Okay, and after clicking browse, we looked for exactly where flights analysis was. We selected it and then we clicked open, and the path for flights analysis showed up here, and then we clicked on create project. So what the visible change that happened in flights analysis after going through these steps that I just reviewed with you was simply to add this file here. Now it's very important, guys, to know the difference between the cube looking icon and the circle looking icon. The cube is for project. So whenever you see this cube, and if you look at the type, actually the type is our project, right? If you see this somewhere, that simply means that you are inside an RStudio project. Okay, but the circle here is for scripts, where you write code basically. Okay, that's what you need to know. That's the difference. Okay, one last thing is I'm going to assume that you guys haven't opened RStudio yet. Okay, I'm sure that most of you have, but I'm just going to assume that most of you guys haven't. So I'm just going to close my project and I'm going to get off of RStudio. Now, how do I get back inside my project? Okay, I can do it in many ways. If I locate my project folder flights analysis, I can go ahead and click on the R project. So if I do that, it's going to open up RStudio and it's going to open up my project at the same time. Okay, it's really important to understand this. But if I click on the script, okay, let me do it. Let me click on the script only. If I click on the script, it's going to open up RStudio. The code that we wrote last time is going to show up. But see, I am not inside my project, and that's not what I want. Whenever you work on a project, you want to stay within that project. It's really important. All right. So you don't want to work on a script which is not in the project. And you remember, guys, when you're inside a project, the name of that project shows up here, right? Okay. So now I am going to click on the cube, okay, because I want to open RStudio and my project as well. So I'm going to double click on this. lo and behold, now I am inside Flight Analysis, right? And my script is also open because my script was open when I closed the project. When I open it back up, all the scripts that were open are going to open again. Okay, so you can see it in action here. Okay, now one more minute. We learned how to install packages. Okay, we learned how to install some packages using the install.packages function. All right, which is great. So the 4 packages that we installed are reader, here, dplyr, and ggplot2. The reason why we did it in 2 lines was simply because first I wanted to teach you how to install any package at all. Okay, so if you want to install a single package, install.packages, parentheses, quotations, and then the name of the package. Okay, now second, if you happen to be willing to install several packages at the same time, if you want to install several packages, then you can combine this package names with the C function, as you can see here. So C, then here, comma, dplyr, comma, ggplot2, and they are all in quotes. Okay, it's really, really important to remember that. Okay, so after installing the packages, the reason why we transformed this into comments was simply because we don't need to run this line of code again. We just need to install a package once and it's installed forever. However, whenever you close RStudio and you open it again, you need to load your packages every time. So the analogy that I gave you was installing a package is like buying a toolbox, but loading a package is like opening the toolbox to use the tools that are inside. So you need to open your toolbox whenever you come back to your project, right? So we use the library function for that. So library here, library reader, library dplyr, library ggplot2. So you close them because you just open your project again. Let's select everything and let's run it. And just so you remember, to run code in R, it's Control Enter if you're on the Windows or Command Enter if you're on the Mac. Okay. And now you will see a bunch of things show up here. If you don't see the word error, then you're fine. If you see error, then you're not fine. Okay. And the very first, or the second actual data analysis task that we performed was to import the data that I sent you. Okay. And because the data that I sent you was of the CSV format. CSV stands for comma separated values. Okay, comma separated values. And this is a very popular format online. Many of the data sets that you're going to find online, they are of the CSV format. So there's a beautiful function inside the reader package called read_CSV. Okay, so we wrote the name of this function, we open the parentheses because it's a function. Then we use the here function. The here function is inside the here package. Okay, but they both have the same names, but just remember that the here function is inside the here package. And after here, parentheses, then quotations, and then the exact path to the file. Okay, the file that we are trying to import into our R session. Okay, that's essentially what we did. And I gave you homework, guys. We imported only 2 data sets, and I asked you to import all 5 data sets. So there were 3 other data sets that we didn't import online. Please, if you are able to complete the homework, I would like for you to tell me that you did it. And yeah, we have a very good friend of mine who joined us for the first time today, Akisi. Well, welcome, and I hope you're doing good. Okay, so again, if you did the homework, please write about it in the chat and let me know that you did the homework. Now, in the meantime, I am going to do that because I haven't done it. Whenever I give you a homework, I'm going to start the stream by solving the homework question. That was a really quick homework. Yes, Romina, you actually did it. I guess you even did it while we were streaming last time. Good stuff. Okay, I saw it. All right, so I'm going to do it. So read_CSV. All right, Leonard, very good, my friend. All right, now I showed you the trick, right? All right, Mary, good stuff. The trick here is instead of writing everything yourself, the trick is once you write read_CSV here, and then you open the quotations, make sure that your pointer is exactly inside the quotations, okay? And then you press the tab button. This is, oh, everybody did it. That's really great. You guys are great students. All right, so I press the tab button, and when I do that, all the files and the folders that are inside my project show up. So instead of, typing the path myself, I can just press the tab button once my pointer is here, and then I can just look for the file. Okay, so I have flights and airports. Okay, there is airlines. Okay, and let me be a little lazy. I'm going to copy and paste. Okay, so after airlines, I'm just going to remove airlines here. I've got planes, and then the last one is weather. Okay, great. And I'm really hoping that you guys were run the code to see if the data was actually imported. I hope that you tried out your code to see if it was imported. So I just run flights underscore CSV. This is the flights file. Airports, this is it. Airlines, this is it. Okay, that's the airlines data. Planes, this is it right here. And weather is here. Okay, so all my 5 data sets are imported, were imported successfully. Okay. All right, guys, so it is now time. This was a quick review of what we learned last time, and solving of the very quick homework as well. Now let's get some new skills. All right, let's learn some new skills. Okay, guys, we have a problem right now. And the problem is that, let me run this line of code again. Let me import flights again. The flights data set was imported, but the only thing that happened was that it just showed up in the console. Okay? It just showed up in the console, and that's it. So, of course, this is data analysis, so we need to get the data and then analyze it. So when it shows up in the console like that, how do I analyze it? Remember that in the console, everything that you see in the console, you can't really do anything with it, because it's like you enter something, then you get the result, and then that's it. You can't really manipulate whatever shows up in the console. So for example, in the flights data set, I say I have scheduled departure time. I'm going to explain all these variables: departure time, day, arrival time, and things like that. How do I analyze it? Well, I am going to teach you the concept of variables in R. Variables. A variable is a unit of storage. And by that I mean that, when you import anything, you can store it somewhere and then apply whatever you want to do to it. Like run your analysis, change it, do whatever you want. Okay, and this is called a variable. Now, how do we create variables in R? It's a very simple process. In order to create a variable, the first thing you need to do is you need to find a name for your variable. And finding a name for the variable is actually fairly easy. It's anything you can think of. Of course, there are some rules when you choose a variable name. For example, a variable name cannot contain a space. It has to be one long string of words, of characters, with no space in it. It cannot start with a number, for example. It has to start with a letter, but the rules are very simple. Okay. And that's what we're going to do now. So here again, we are importing the flights.csv data set here. Let us store it inside a variable. And usually, when you try to find a variable name, let the name that you pick, okay, be an indicator for what you are storing inside. Like for example, we're going to store information on flights, like many flights. I'm not going to call it cake, or I don't know. I'm not going to call it, turkey, or I don't know. I just need to find a name that goes well with this. And why not just pick the name flights? Because we're going to store flights information in it. All right. Okay. So to create a variable, okay, I'm going to go to the very beginning. Oh, one very important thing that I didn't do, and I'm sorry about that. I told you last time that you can see my code live. So I am going to send you right now the link to be able to see my code live. Oh, I shut down I and I open it again, so it's not working anymore. Guys, don't worry about what I'm going to do right now in the console. You don't need to do this. It's a package that I'm using to for my code to be live. Bit.ly false. Okay, and I need to add this here. Yeah, now I'm on my second screen, so you can't really see what I'm doing right now. But I am going to make. Okay, so Leonard is asking, how do I get to check whether a package has been installed? Okay, I'm going to answer that question in a second. Now, Leonard asked the question, how do I get to check if a package was installed? There's this tab here in the lower right corner of your screen called Packages. Okay, if you click on it, it's going to show you the list of all packages that are installed currently. So, for example, if you just try to install readr, you can type readr in the search box here, readr, okay, and you have to make sure that it's there. If it doesn't show up, it means that that package was not successfully installed. So that's how you go about it. Okay, and Leonard, you can actually write your question in the chat during the stream time, and I can answer like that so that other people can see it as well. It's going to help everybody. Okay, so let's create a variable. So I'm going to line 20 right now. Okay, Mary, don't worry, we'll get to that. No problem. I'll show you. Okay, so flights. That's the name of my variable. So I'm going to write flights. That's the name that I chose. Okay, and I am going to specify that I want the imported data to be stored inside flights. So now I can write the less than symbol and then dash. Okay, well, I have a special font here. Okay, actually, Mary, you asked about the dark background. I guess is going to help you as well. So you can go to Tools, Global Options, and then Appearance. All right, so the reason why I'm here is because I want to change my font. You see, in my code, you can see an actual arrow. That's a special font. And many of the things that I write are like that actually, and I like to see it like that instead of the less than symbol and then the dash, right? So I guess I'm going to pick something more normal, I guess. Okay, courier, I think. Okay, apply. Oh, Mary, by the way, once you're here, in appearance, for some reason, my computer is frozen. Let me see what's wrong. I'm not sure what's happening right now. Okay, everything seems to work, but my RStudio is frozen for some reason. Okay, let me just close RStudio and then get back to it. Alright, so I'm going to click the project button again, the project icon, and I'm going to get back to my project as it was. Okay, there it is. All right, so now you can see that it's less than and dash. And Mary, I mean, since you were asking, let me just show you very quickly. Appearance, you can choose pastel on dark. In editor theme, you can choose pastel on dark and then apply. Okay, and then it's going to become dark like mine. Okay, now the link that I sent you to check my code is not working anymore because I had to get out of RStudio and then I came back in, so it's not going to work. So let me make it again very quickly, guys, in order to help you. So all right, so we've got flights and then less than and dash and then read underscore CSV data raw flights.csv. Okay, all right, so what we need to do now, okay, let me try to interpret this first. Okay, so what we said was, okay, we already know that this line of code here will import the data set, flights.csv. This is something that we already know, okay? But then this symbol here is basically, it's like a left arrow, right? It is basically saying that once the data set is imported, I want you to store it inside a variable called flights. Okay, that's really what this line of code here means. Okay, so let's now try it. You see that currently our environment is empty. We talked about the environment, I think, on the very first day or the second day or something like that. And we said that anytime you store something, you store some information, it's going to show up in your environment. And that's what we're going to do now. So now you see my pointer is on this line of code and I'm going to press Control Enter. Oh, okay. You see, I got out of R and I came back. And because I did that, I need to open my toolboxes again. So I just did. You see, I got an error because I was trying to use read_CSV and read_CSV was not already open, right? It wasn't open. So I just opened it. So when I run it again, you see flight. Now flight shows up here, okay? Which means that I was successful in storing my data inside flights. And you can see actually you see the name of the variable that was created, that's storage, okay? And you see some information here, which we'll get back to, okay? All right. Well, let's basically now, I hope the stream is still going on, guys. Please tell me something in the chat, because no one has written anything for some time now. So please, if everything is still going well, say something in the chat. Okay, so let's create variables for everything else, basically. Okay, we have airports, airlines, planes, and weather. Okay, let's just use these file names as variables. We don't have to do that. You know, I can decide to call it anything that I want. You too, by the way. Okay, but let's just use these names because it's going to make everything simpler, right? So now I'm going to write airports for this one. Okay, for the airlines data set, I'm going to write airlines and then store it here. And for planes, I'm going to write planes and then store it here. And for weather, I'm going to write weather and then store it here. Okay, so this is essentially what you need to do here. Okay, and right now, of course, it is true that I added airports, airlines, planes, and weather. Okay, but I still need to run the code. I still need to run the code for it to be, for it to go through, right? Okay, so let me just run airports, airlines, planes, and weather. Honestly, guys, this is the first time that this is happening to me. I'm not sure why my RStudio is freezing like that. It's really weird. And there's no stop sign here too, so I'm not really sure what's happening. Let me try the X. Okay, so one more time, let me just get out of RStudio and get back into it. And because of that, that link to my code is not going to work anymore because it's a live session kind of thing. Now I'm going to run everything at once. And it should, yeah, that's it. So all my files are here. So I'm not really sure why it's, playing tricks on me like that. Is it because of the live code that I'm using or something like that? Because I've never really used it. This is really my first time using it here. But I don't know. Okay, but let me do it again because I guess you guys need it. I'll try to, give you the code to my... Okay, Bitly is false by default, so I don't need to do that. I'm going to try to send it to you again. If it's not working this time, or if it freezes again, then that means that this is the culprit, and I guess you guys will just need to wait till the end of the stream, to have the full code or something like that. Okay, so now we have 5 variables. We have 5 data sets inside our environment. By the way, the environment, as I said, is like the big storage of our R session. Everything that we have saved is in the environment and we can see it, okay, which is good. Now, quick reminder, you see, I just cleared up my console. To clear up your console is Control L, okay, so we learned it. Control Enter is for executing code, or Command Enter if you have a Mac. Control L or Command L to clear up your console. And what else? Did we learn any other shortcut? But we'll learn other shortcuts as we go. Okay, guys. So once again, now our data is saved, so we can use it. All right. So just so you know, we will spend most of our time working on the flights data set, And of course, we'll take a quick look at the other data sets for sure. But I will mostly assign homework on the other data sets. So the things that we're going to learn in flights, you will apply these skills on the other data sets. Okay, so now that we've imported everything, how do we then take a quick look at what is inside our data set? So now that we know that, for example, flights has been created and the flights data set is stored inside flights, now we can actually run flights, okay, which is the name of the variable that we created. We can run it, okay, like we can write it in our script and then execute it. And once we do, okay, guys, I think that is the live code that is messing with me. Guys, I'm really sorry, but I think that we'll have to stop using it. I am really sorry about that, guys, but of course, you know. Oh, okay. All right. Okay, it's working again. Okay, it's working again. I just did something and then it's okay. I guess I know how to fix it now. Okay, perfect. All right, so after running flights, oh, okay, so I tried to run it twice and it's showing up twice here, which is perfect. Okay, so once again, after running flights, you see the content of flights is now showing up, okay, which is wonderful. Let's try to do it with airports now. Okay, I wrote airports, and it has to be exactly the the same case and exactly the same variable that you created. So for airports, you know, when I run it, it's right here, okay. And for airlines, run it, it's right here, and so on and so forth, okay. And I can see that, yeah, the live code is still working, so that's perfect. Okay, let's try it for planes. Run it. For weather, run it. And yeah, so we just learned something. So okay, so Romina, glad to know that everything is working now. All right, so planes, weather, you know, so I just checked and all my data is working. Okay, you don't have to do it every time. I knew that it would work, especially if you see it here, it means that it's working, right? So you don't really need to do it, you know, like to write it here again and then try to check what is inside. But since I'm teaching you and most of you are seeing this for the first time, so that's perfect. By the way, Akisi, can you hear me now? So Mary, then you have to, if read underscore CSV could not be read, that would mean then that maybe you didn't load the reader package, or maybe it means that you didn't specify the correct path to your file. So it's one of the two. Okay, so check to see if it's working. If you haven't, again, if you haven't run this code here, the library code, then you will not be able to use read underscore CSV. Yeah, could not find the function. That means that you haven't run library reader, because again, if you don't open up the tool, you won't be able to do that. Okay, what is the link to the code? Okay, I'm just doing it here. Oh, okay. So it's the link at the bottom, Akisi. This is where the link is. Okay, guys. So let's move on, guys. Okay. Now, I want us to take some time and try to understand what is happening here. Okay. So I'm going to clear up my console, and you're welcome, Mary. So flights. I'm going to run it again, and I want us to take a quick look at flights. Okay, I want the bigger part to show up here. Okay, so this is the content of our data set, guys. So the flights data set is a very rich data set. Okay, the first line here is a table. A table is a special format of data, okay, which we'll use a lot, okay. But basically, when you use read underscore CSV to import your data set, it transforms it into a table, okay, which is like a data table with specific features. Now, it tells you 336,776. This, ladies and gentlemen, is the number of rows of the data set. It is very big. Okay, so we have more than 300,000 rows in this data set, and then 14 columns. Okay, so these are the dimensions of the data set flights. All right, next line. On the next line, we have the names of the columns. So the first column is the year column. So that's the, and again, this is a data set that contains information on flights. And again, I'll tell you more about this data set in a second. And maybe I should say this now. The flights data set has information on every single flight that departed from New York City or that came into New York City. Okay, so all the flights. Oh, my bad. I think it's only all the flights. Yeah, it's information only on all the flights that departed from New York City. So it's not all the flights in the United States, but all the flights that departed. So even the flights that came into New York City from outside New York City are not mentioned here. Okay, and because the airports in New York City are very, very busy, you see, we have 336,776 rows, and each row has information on a specific flight that happened in the year 2013. Okay, so this first row here, because all the data is in order, this first row is information on the first flight that happened in 2013 that departed from New York City. So let's take a quick look at this flight. It happened in 2013 in the first month and the first day. So basically this is January 1st, right? Now this is the exact departure time. The exact departure time is, of course, January 1st, 2013 at 10:17 a.m. Okay, 10:17 a.m. That was the first flight. But then that flight was scheduled to happen at 10:15 a.m. Okay, and you know there's always a difference. You know, scheduled departure time when it is supposed to happen, and actual departure time when it actually happened. So we have information on that flight on that. Then this is the arrival time, okay, when that flight landed. Okay. And Leonard, I'm not really sure. Can you hear me now? If there's a technical problem, maybe it's an internet problem. Whenever you have a problem, try to refresh the stream, and everything should be good. So we have arrival time, okay, and so it got to wherever it was going in the same day at 1 p.m., 1:30 p.m. But you see, it was scheduled to arrive at 1:19 p.m. Okay, so there's always a difference between the arrival time and the scheduled arrival time. So this is going to be very interesting because, for example, one of our analysis that we're going to run is we're going to try to understand. Okay, great, Leonard. We're going to try to understand flight delays. We're going to do some really interesting analysis on flight delays. So maybe which airline company has the most delays, for example, or the least delays, or which airline company is usually on time. These are the kind of analysis that is important for people. Let's assume that a businessman, a very big businessman that works in New York City, hires you, and that businessman really wants to be on time every single time. And the businessman gives you this data set and says, okay, you know what? I am going to fly a lot out of New York City. Would you please tell me which airlines I should always go to for my flights? Well, using this data, you can actually find out, run your analysis, and then come back with a solid answer for that individual. Okay. So scheduled arrival time. Now the carrier is the airline company. Okay, and all these are symbols. UA is for United Airlines, AA is for American Airlines, DL is for Delta, and so on and so forth. Actually, the airlines data set gives you more information. It gives you all the symbols and then what airlines we actually have there. Okay, all right. So that's for the carrier. And Romina, thank you for giving that advice again. Now, this is the flight number. Every single flight has a flight number, right? So this is the flight number. It doesn't really carry too much information. I don't think that we're going to get a lot out of it. But hey, who knows? Maybe we're going to find some things that are interesting. Now, this is the tail num. The tail num is basically the name of the aircraft that is being used. You know, it's like you have a name, right? So every aircraft actually has a name. Okay, every aircraft actually has a name. And over here you have the origin. So in New York City, not inside New York City, but around New York City, we have three main airports. Okay, we have three main airports. So Akisi is saying that you're having an error. Would you please copy and paste the error so that I know exactly what's going on? Okay, so the origin, okay, and because all the flights are coming out of, all the airlines are, sorry, all the flights are coming out of New York City. The airports that you're going to see here are all airports that are in the area of New York City. So EWR is Newark. Okay, not New York, but Newark. Okay, Newark. That's the code for that airport. Then you have LGA, which is LaGuardia, which is actually inside New York City. Okay, LaGuardia. And JFK, of course, is the international airport. That's John Kennedy, the international airport, John Francis Kennedy. Okay, so because all the flights are coming out of New York, you will always have one of the three, airports here. So that first flight came out of Newark, actually, as you can see. Now, this is a destination. So all these flights too, it's important to mention in this data set, all these flights are domestic flights, which means that we don't have information on international flights. So these are all flights that whose destinations were inside the United States. Okay, so IAH, I think is it? IAH. I can't remember. Is this Washington? I'm checking Google very quickly. IAH Airport. Is it Washington, D.C.? Oh, IAH. Well, that's what? Houston, Texas. Okay. Okay. International Airport of Houston, I guess. Okay, so that's Houston. Okay, Houston, Texas. All right. That's Houston, Texas. Great. All right, and so that was the destination. Over here we have the airtime. So the airtime is the number of minutes, okay, that the flight took. So right here we have 227 minutes. Okay, so that's good to know. And there are other columns in this data set. And these other columns are not showing up here because I don't have enough space to show everything. But a table is smart enough to give me that information here. By the way, I told you that there are 336,776 rows. This would be too painful to print in a console. I mean, we're not going to see the end of it, right? So tables are great because they only show you the first 10 rows. And it tells you, okay, beyond these first 10 rows, we also have 336,766 rows, which you're not seeing right now. Okay, so this is the extra rows and one more variable. And by one more variable, we mean one more column. Okay, one more column. And that column is distance. And this is the distance between the origin and the destination in miles. Okay, and so this is the other piece of information that we have in this data set. So guys, you see, this is the data we're going to be working with, and we're going to do a whole lot of interesting things. And of course, we have 4 more data sets, okay? So I am not really going to go through everything in these other data sets, but I prepared a file for you where I explain what the columns in these other data sets actually represent. So it's on a PDF. I'm going to send it to you. I'm going to post it on the Slack channel, and when I put it on YouTube, it's going to be in the description below the video. And I really encourage you to take some time and read, and so you can get more familiar with these other data sets. But flights is really where we're going to spend most of our time. But basically, airports has information on airports, so I can show you this very quickly. This is the name of all the airports in the United States, and every airport has a code, as we know. These are the codes of these airports. Now, this is the latitude and the longitude. We're going to use that to make some maps, and I think I mentioned that the other day. This is the altitude. So how high is it, from sea level? This is the time zone. Not sure what DST, and this is the time zone again. So this is the time difference from universal time, from the UT or GMT, right? Greenwich Meridian Time, and this is the name of the time zone. DST, I'm not really sure what it is, but you have the information on the planes, on the weather, in New York City on all these days in 2013. And again, we're going to do a whole lot of interesting things. Okay, guys, I hope that you guys can still hear me. Akisi, I asked you to paste your error actually, so you haven't done that yet. If I see your error, I will be able to help you and let you know what you can do. And it's really good, guys. Whenever you run into an error, please paste your error here, because you are going to run into a lot of errors, guys. So you might as well take the time and familiarize yourself with the errors and what they mean, so that whenever you encounter them, you will be able to know what to do. Okay, actually, I meant to talk about it, but I did it in front of you guys without actually saying it. If you want to see what is inside a data set or a variable that you created, you don't need to write it and then execute it here. You can just select it wherever it is. You see, so when I select flights and I press Control Enter or Command Enter, it doesn't run the entire line. It only runs what I selected. So this is a very good way to check the content of your data, interactively as you do your work, right? So you don't have to, waste some lines of code to do that. So that's a very interesting thing to know that you can actually use whenever you want. By the way, I don't know if you realized it, but in the live code, whenever I put my pointer on one line of code, it actually highlights it in the live code. It doesn't highlight exactly the word that I highlighted here, but the entire row is going to be highlighted, which I think is pretty cool, so that you know where I am. But I'm always going to refer to code lines, the numbers basically, whenever I need to. Okay, guys, again, I'm trying to take my time because you guys really need to understand these basics. You need to really get these foundations, and once you understand them, believe me, you will be able to do a lot, and things are going to get a little faster at some point. Okay, guys, now it is time to do some basic data exploration. Now, this is not, we're not going to do in-depth exploration. Actually, this course is about learning how to explore data, but there are some basic things that you may want to do with a data set, okay, once you have it. And that's what I want to show you. And I can't believe I skipped this this line here. So I told you what a table is. This is the number of rows, this is the number of columns, these are the column names, okay, and I showed you what the last line here tells you, the extra rows and then the extra columns that are not showing right now. But this is also very important, people, very, very important, because this tells you what the class of your data is, of each column here is. And by class, what I mean is the type, okay? So actually, let's write these as comments because you're going to need that. So the first here is DBL, and DBL actually stands for double, and double is really numeric data, okay? So in the year column, what you have there is numeric data, okay? And in all the other columns where you see DBL, what you have there is numeric data. It's really important to know the type of data you have, because if you have numeric data, for example, you cannot turn this data to uppercase or lowercase. Uppercase and lowercase are only for letters, not for numbers, right? So it's important to know your data type. All right, the next one that we see here is DTTM. DTTM stands for date, time, okay? And it's basically date and time data. So you can see that data. All right, the first part here is the date, and the second part is the exact time that this event occurred. And that event is the flight, that flight that we're talking about here. Okay, now the next one that we have not seen yet is CHR. CHR is for character. And character is basically text data. Okay, text data. And we use text data a lot. So for example, if you are a teacher, and you have data for your classroom, you have the names of your students, this is character data there. Okay, you have the last names, you have the first names, you have the departments, if you teach in a university, all this is essentially text data. But if you have the age, the height, the weight, this would be double numeric data. Okay, so I thought that this was also important to add. Okay, so now guys, let's do a few more things here for the basic data exploration. We know for a fact that if you print your data inside the console, you will see what the number of rows is and what the number of columns is. But sometimes you want to be able to get that data yourself. Okay, you want to be able to get it to do some computation, depending on what you are trying to do. For example, this morning I was doing some work in R for a friend who needed some help, and I had to use what I'm going to show you right now. So for example, if you want to know the number of columns in a data set, in this data flights we have 14, right? You can use the ncol function. Everything is lowercase, ncol, which stands for number of columns. Then you open the parentheses. Once you open the parentheses, you put the name of your data set, okay, inside it. So for example, I want to know the number of columns in the flights data. So I will just write flights and then execute it, and you will see 14. Leonard is asking, what about other data types such as logical and factor? Yes, indeed, we just don't have these types in this data set. That's why I haven't talked about it, but we will definitely, I have some data sets that we'll use in the future that have these other data types. These are very important data types. There are actually more data types there are more basic data types in R that we're going to talk about, but that's very good, which means that you actually already have some knowledge in R. This is great. Okay, as I told you, we're going to use a lot of comments because comments are really good, so that when you go back to your code, you are able to understand what you were trying to do. So number of columns. Okay, if you want to find the number of rows, we have n row like this. Actually, let's change it up a little bit. Let's find out the number of rows in the airports data set. Number of rows. Okay, so how many rows do we have in the airport data set? We have 1,458. 1,458. Okay, so that's n row for you. Actually, I should have written n row before ncol. Not because, it really doesn't matter, but it's important to know that, whenever you see this, for example, the first one is always rows and the second one is always columns. Okay, so just so that it is the same logically in your mind, I'm just going to put n row before ncol. Okay, now if you want to know the dimensions of the data set, that's how you do it. Okay, it is possible to write one code that will give you the two pieces of information at the same time. Okay, and that's the dim function, dim, which is the short form of dimensions. Okay, let's take a quick look at the dimensions of the planes data set. So when I run it, you see the first number here is the number of rows of the planes data set, and the second number is the number of columns of the planes data set. So dim for dimensions will give you will give you this information. Okay. Oops, I want to add a comment here. Number of dimensions, like this. Okay. Well, I just checked the live code, and I think, yeah, live code is still working. That's perfect. All right. Let's look at a few more things that we can, a few pieces of information. Actually, these are specific pieces of information on the data, but sometimes, like, for example, I have a pretty large screen, and that's why I can, show you all this by making space here. But if you're working on a smaller screen, it's really going to be hard for you to see everything. And actually, it's impossible for very large data sets, right? And you have to come here to look at, okay, what are the columns that I couldn't see here, but that are still in my data set? But instead of doing it, you can actually use the glimpse function, okay? Now, it's very important to know the glimpse function is inside the dplyr package. So if you did not install dplyr, and if you did not load it, you won't have access to the glimpse function, okay? Now, let's take a glimpse of the weather data set, okay? Let me clear up my console and let me run this again. Okay, so it's frozen again. So I think there's something going on in the code here, I guess. What I tried to do last time is not working. No. Okay, well, it's working now. Okay, all right, it's working. Perfect. So I guess I know how to do it. So you see, the glimpse function gives you a general overview of your entire data set, which is good. So first it tells you, okay, number of rows is this, number of columns is this, and then every column, okay, is given to you row by row. So this is not how the data is presented in its natural state. That's not how the data is presented. But this is just every column, and it shows you what the first few rows of these columns look like, so that you just get a general sense of your data set entirely. Okay, and it's very neat because it's given to you row by row, which is perfectly fine. And you also have the classes of the data. So we know, for example, that origin is text data, and you can see it here, text, 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 text. You can see that the year column is numeric data, double. You can see it here. Okay, and that's again the weather data set. This is not flight. You can see also that time hour here is a date time data column, and you can see what it looks like. So 6 a.m. So you have weather information at 6 a.m., 7 a.m., 8 a.m., and so on and so forth. Pressure, visibility, wind gust, and so on and so forth. Okay, so the glimpse function, okay, gives you an overview. Okay, let me actually add a detailed overview of the data set. Okay, let me just put it here so that it's with everything else. Okay, so this is actually pretty interesting. So whenever you have data, these are ways you can know what your data looks like, and the kind of things you can do with it. And for those of you who are into statistics, okay, you may have some summary statistics of every single columns in your data. Okay, now in base R you can use the summary function. So let's apply summary, let's say to a smaller data set, let's say to flights. Okay, now this is going to show up, and for every column is going to give you some statistics. So this is for the year column, for the month column, for the day column, departure time, and so on and so forth. And it gives you what is known as the distribution. For people who have done statistics, it tells you what the minimum value is. It tells you what the first quartile, the median, the mean, the third quartile, and the maximum are. Now all the flights are in 2013. So 2013 is the only number throughout that entire column. For all the 300,000 and so observations, you have to 2013 for everything. So that's why you have it all the way. And it gives you the summary statistic for other things. So let's look at airtime, for example. This is the length of the flight in time. So the shortest flight was 20 minutes. The longest flight was 695 minutes. And NA it means that this is data that was not available. And you will encounter this a lot. When we start our analysis, we will encounter a lot of NAs as well, And overall, the average flight okay, is like 150 minutes, so it's about 2 hours and 30 minutes. And the median flight time is 130 minutes, okay, not too far. There's a 20-minute difference, okay. And again, this is all stats. I'm thinking about maybe running some stats course at some point in the future. But again, if you didn't understand what I just said, it's perfectly fine. It's really not needed for what we are trying to do here, so don't worry about it. Okay, so this is for distribution parenthesis summary statistics, okay, of the data, okay, or for the columns in the data. Okay, you have other packages that do a much better job than the summary function. You know, for example, you have the psych package that does a really great job. But yeah, this is something for another time. Now, just so you know that Glimpse is inside the dplyr package, I am going to add this at the end here, inside the dplyr package. So if you haven't installed and loaded dplyr, you will not be able to use Glimpse. But everything else is in base R. Like nrow is in base R, so the minute you install R, you can use it. Encall is in base R, summary is in base R, and dim is in base R as well. Okay, so these are just some quick things. There are a few other things that we're going to learn. That's not a problem. But guys, when we meet next time, this is when we're actually going to start data manipulation. Okay, so I just want to give you a glimpse of what we're going to do next time. But before that, I want to teach you an interesting way to structure your script. Okay, so this is some quality of life improvement, if you will. This script is going to be long, guys. Believe me, we're going to get maybe to 200 lines, maybe more. Okay, it's going to be long. So it's very important that we keep everything in a very structured way. And it's important that, you know, maybe if you're looking for some code somewhere, maybe in 2 weeks, it's important that you are able to get to the code that you're looking for as quickly as possible. All right. So a very nice way to kind of structure your script is what I'm going to show you right now. So what I've been trying to do is to use comments as like section titles. So install packages. So now we're going to install packages. Then load packages. Now we're going to load packages, and so on and so forth. So I have been trying to do that for you guys. But we're going to add something else to it. So you see, after install packages, I want you to add 4 dashes. 1, 2, 3, 4. Like this. If you didn't realize, you know, an arrow just showed up here. And that arrow is not there anymore because I removed the dashes. But let me do it again. 1, 2, 3, 4. And now we have an arrow here. You will understand what this means in a second. Second section here. 1, 2, 3, 4. And actually, it's at least 4 dashes. So if you have 5 dashes, 6 dashes, 20 dashes, it doesn't really matter. Okay. So now the small arrow is here. Now we imported data. 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay. Actually, let's update this this section title here. Import data and store it inside variables. Oops, I misspelled it. Variables, like this. All right. Okay, and we have the little arrow and the most recent section 2, 3, 4. Okay, so what is the effect of what we just did? The effect is that RStudio, just because of what we added, RStudio just created a very nice table of contents for us. And where can we find that table of content? It's right here. You know, you see basic data exploration here. The reason why it's here is because my pointer is in this section. So it is telling me exactly the section where my pointer is. Now, if I click on it, these are the 4 comments where I added the 4 dashes that are here. So you see, this is very neat, guys. Install packages. So if I click on it, it's going to take me straight to install packages. If I go to basic data exploration, my pointer is going to go straight there. So now this is actually how we're going to go about it. We're going to, whenever we have a new section, we're going to add 4 dashes to it. And when we do, we will be able to see, the table of contents of our script. Okay, guys, that's a pretty neat trick, isn't it? Very, very nice trick. And actually, when you do that, you can click on this button here as well. And when you click on this button, it actually shows you that table of content too. So you can navigate your code using this. Okay, but if you don't want to use up this real estate for your table of content, okay, just do it here. Okay, so that's a trick that I wanted to show you, and we're going to be using this trick from now on. All right, so the next section, guys, which we are actually going to start seriously when we meet next time on Tuesday 2 p.m. okay, is data manipulation with the dplyr package. Guys, this is where we're going to do some fun stuff. We're going to filter the data. We're going to arrange the data. We're going to add more data, remove data, select the data. We're going to summarize, group by. We're going to do some interesting things here. Okay, so data manipulation with the dplyr package. Of course, the glimpse function that we used earlier is from the dplyr package, but that was just, for basic. You want to know the structure of your data, and that's why you use it. But to manipulate the data, okay, this is where we're going to do it. Okay, now the first function that we're going to talk about, and again, I'm just going to give you a glimpse, and we're going to talk more about it when we meet next time, because we're almost out of time. I really want to keep it to like an hour and 15 minutes. Of course, when I edit the video, there are many parts that are cut out, so when I upload it, it's sometimes less. But I really don't want us to learn too many things. As I told you, this is really introduction to data science with R for beginners. So I try to just cover a few things at a time, and then give you some homework for you guys to practice. And there will be homework today, which I'm going to send you through the Slack channel. But yeah, data manipulation with the dplyr package. Let's talk about filter. That's the name of the first function we'll talk about. Filter. Everything is lowercase. Okay, and let's add some explanation to it for filtering the data. Okay, now there's a trick that I personally use. Data manipulation with the dplyr package is kind of a big section, and there are some subsections in it. So how do I create a table of content that has subsections? The thing is, if I add my 4 dashes here, it's going to consider that filter is another big section, So RStudio doesn't really have a way to add subsections, but what I personally do is I add a less than symbol like this, so that when you look at it, when you see this symbol here, then you know that, okay, this is basically a subsection of whatever it is under, So this is just a hack, If you want to use a different symbol, you can do that. I think tilde works too, right? Tilde works. Yeah, tilde works. You can use tilde if you want. I don't know. I like using this. You can use whatever you want. Okay, so now I want you to write this code here with me. So what does filtering the data means? I told you we are going to work a lot on flights. Okay, filtering the data means that you want to look at specific observations in your data set that satisfy specific conditions. Okay, so for example, we know that there are many flights to many destinations, but let's assume that I am only interested in looking at the flights that went to Dallas, okay, Dallas, Texas. I have 300,000 rows more, okay, and I want to discard all these other observations and only focus, okay, on what I am really looking for, Dallas, Texas. For cases like that, the filter function is what you're looking for. And there are so many applications. For example, you are a store manager for one big, company or something like that. And let's say that you want to conduct an analysis on the workers in the company that work in a specific department of your company. There are many departments in your company, but you want to focus on people in a specific department. Well, you want to use the filter function. So filtering, it means that you discard what you don't want and then you keep only what you are interested in. Okay, there are so many applications. For example, as a professor, and I think I introduced myself on the first day, I'm a professor of economics, right? At the end of the quarter, I want to find out, and yes, my university is in a quarter system, not the semester system, Louisiana Tech University, which is a wonderful university, by the way. So that's my little plug in here. If you're a high school student or something like that, and you're looking for a great place after coronavirus, hey, come to Louisiana Tech. It's a really wonderful place. Okay, so I want to find out who my A students are and my B students are. Or for example, like what I do is after every test, and I'm giving a test on Monday, by the way, the students who failed, sometimes I have huge classes, especially my introductory courses, right? I have like 100 and something students. And if I only want to focus on those who failed the test, I use the filter function to find them, and it filters the data and shows me the students who failed the test, and I can reach out to them, send them an email and tell them, hey guys, what went wrong? Do you need any help understanding the material and stuff like that? So that's something that I personally do. And I actually do some really cool things with R to manage my classroom, like automatic emails and things like that, which maybe we're going to use one stream one day, and I will tell you about the projects that I work on in R. But guys, enough talking. Let's code. Okay, so now this is just a comment. It's not a subsection or a section. And Leonard, yes, it's an interesting structure. So this is just a comment. It's not a section, a subsection, or whatever. Okay. Flights to Dallas. Okay, so you want to write code that will find all the flights to Dallas only. Okay, so how are you going to do it? So the first thing that you do is you write filter. Okay, that's the function name, filter. You open the parentheses. The first element that you put in that function, that we call technically an argument, the first argument of the function is the name of the data set that you want to filter. The name of the data set that you want to filter. Now, we're going to use flights, and I want all the flights going to Dallas, right? So I'll write flights because I already imported data and I stored it inside here. Okay, so now I have access to the data through flights. And I add a comma. I add a comma here. Okay. All right, next, I need to write the condition for filtering. My condition was I want all the flights to Dallas only. So I need to ask myself the question, which column here pertains to the condition that I have? Okay, flights to Dallas, right? So which column in this data set has information pertaining to what I am looking for? Well, it is definitely the dest column, because the dest column is destination, right? So I want the destination to be Dallas. Okay, so after the comma, I am going to write this condition now. So dest for programming means is equal to. So destination is equal to whatever the code for Dallas is, and it's DFW for Dallas Fort Worth. Okay, and because it is text data, we have to put it in quotation marks. Okay, so quotes DFW, and because it is written in uppercase here, you have to write it in uppercase here as well. If you don't, it's not going to work. Okay, all right. If you have a problem with this code, please copy and paste the code using the link that I gave you. Okay. All right. So let me go ahead and run. You see, the entire flights data set has 336,000 and plus rows. But now the data that I obtained has 8,738 rows, which means that my data was indeed filtered. Okay. And as you can see, if you look at the dest column right here, everything is Dallas Fort Worth now, because we are now focusing on all the flights to Dallas. So if maybe you want to run an analysis on flights to Dallas only, this is the first step in your data so we manipulated the data because we changed it in such a way that it is not like it was before. That's what data manipulation is. Okay, and we use the filter function. Please tell me in the chat whether you were able to run this code and whether it actually worked for you. And do you have 8,738 rows too in the resulting data set? Please let me know in the chat below. So this is just a taste of what we're going to start doing, okay, next time. But in the meantime, you already know a lot because you can already filter data basically, based on this. But I am going to let's look at the second filter. Okay, we're going to do a second one, and so that you see what it looks like here. Now, unfortunately, okay, let me just remove it and okay. All right, so you see my screen is big enough so I can see all the 14 columns. This is the distance in miles, and this is the airtime in minutes. All right, so let's say that you are interested in knowing what are the flights that lasted more than 1 hour and 30 minutes. Okay, so let's write it as a comment. Flights that lasted more than 1 hour and 30 minutes. More than, okay? That's another comparison. So we said that equals means is equal to. So more than would mean greater than, right? Let's do it. Filter, that's the name of the function, filter. The name of the data that we're trying to filter here, flights, okay, comma. And the question is, what column pertains to what we're looking for? So we're talking about time here. Flights that lasted more than 1 hour and 30 minutes. Well, it's definitely the airtime column that you see here. Okay, that's the column that we are interested in looking at. Okay, the airtime column. All right, so Leonard, it worked for you. That's perfect. Okay, so airtime. So it's air underscore time. Okay, all right, it's there. So you write the name of the column exactly like it is in the data set, and you want it to be greater than 1 hour and 30 minutes because the data is in minutes. 1 hour and 30 minutes will be 90 minutes, right? So greater than 90, like this. All right, and we're going to run it. We're going to execute this line of code. All right. Now you see we have 232 instead of 336 something, 232,569 rows. So all these flights that are showing up here and all the rows that we are not seeing, they are all flights that lasted more than 90 minutes. And you can see the first few lines here, they are all like 90 minutes. All of them are more than 90 minutes. Okay. So what if we want to look at very short flights, flights that lasted less than 45 minutes, I'm sorry. Okay, so I said I was going to do a second one. Let's just do a third one, just for the sake of it. Flights that lasted less than 45 minutes. Because I'm lazy, I'm going to copy and paste this because we're going to use the same column anyways, right? I'm going to copy and paste it. Okay, 45. And when I run it, so we didn't have as many, 27,640 flights, right? So of course Boston, Boston is very close to New York City. So yeah, 44 minutes. Another flight to Boston actually took 38 minutes. And so you had a flight of 32 minutes to Philadelphia. Philadelphia is actually fairly close to New York City, and so on and so forth. Okay, so guys, we just learned the filter function, but we're not done. We're going to talk more about it, but I just wanted to give you a taste of what data manipulation is all about. This is only the filtering process, but we have many other steps for manipulating data. All right, ladies and gentlemen, this is what I had for you today. Please don't forget to save your script by clicking on this floppy disk. Right now, I just saved it myself, so that's why this is grayed out right now. But if you haven't saved your script, you're going to see an arrow on the file name, and then this is going to be blue, so you will have to click on it if you want to save your file. Also, if you watch the previous videos, remember we said that when you close your project, if our studio asks you, do you want to save your workspace? Always say no, I don't want to save the workspace. Okay, you want to save your file, but you don't want to save the workspace. Okay, for reasons that I explained in the previous stream. All right, guys, this is time for questions. I'm going to wait. I know that we have a lag between what I'm saying and when you're receiving it. So there's a little bit of lag right now. But I'm going to wait a little bit so that if you guys have some questions, go ahead and ask me the questions. But if everything worked fine for you, please, I would like for you to tell me as well in the chat that everything worked fine for you. Also, I'm holding Zoom sessions right now. So for those of you who had some issues and maybe you didn't discuss your issues here, I am going to invite you all in a Zoom session. If you reach out to me right now, and we can talk about that over Zoom, like I did with Kinley and Romina last time. So I guess I'm going to keep it a habit. After every live stream, we'll go to Zoom and I can look at your problem more privately.